Basutoland, an island of British territory in the Great Sea of the South African Republic. Overpopulated, without mineral wealth, without industries of its own, its main export is the manpower of its people, and its main assets are its soil and its pastures. With the increasing political pressures now arising in this region, it is all the more important that these assets should be exploited to the full. It is part of the function of Oxfam in this territory to assist this process. The appearance of the capital town, Maseru, is typical of the general poor standards of the territory. Even the vegetables being sold in the market have to be imported from the Republic because the country cannot yet produce its own in sufficient quantity. The mountain areas which give Basutoland the name of the Switzerland of Africa are very picturesque, but they present great problems, and the director of Oxfam, Mr. Leslie Kirkley, is here seen on a survey of the territory's difficulties. The mountains are the source of turbulent streams which, in flood, cut deep into the lowlands and eat away the soil. And they present problems of communication, which only planes like this one, provided by Oxfam for its flying doctor service, can overcome. The problems of erosion are tackled with modern machines, operated with great efficiency by Basutos trained for the purpose. But the cost of these machines and the cost of this work, the filling of ravines, the building of spillways and dams, cut deep into the budget of the territory, and these activities have absorbed the main energies of the Department of Agriculture until recent years. But also nowadays, this department is tackling the vital problem of introducing new methods to the farmers of the territory so that the best possible use can be made of its arable land and the soil preserved by good husbandry. In the agricultural training school are taught the teachers of the people. These are the agricultural demonstrators who, at the end of a severe program of training, will go out into the field and each adopt a number of willing farmers who desire to learn the new methods which these people are themselves learning. The presence of a woman in this class is significant, and it is not uncommon, because with the absence of so many of the menfolk, 46% of the manpower of the country at any one time, in the Republic earning a wage because there is no employment in the territory itself, the women are largely responsible in many areas for the farming process and have been found to be extremely teachable and extremely eager to learn. Oxfam has made important contributions to the equipment of this training school, and the students are made aware of the help coming to them from the people of Britain by little notice boards. The teaching of home economics, of the proper dietary use of the new crops to which the farmers are introduced, is also important and is stressed. But this is a practical training program, not a purely academic one, and on the experimental farm which surrounds the training school, the students learn on typical unit farms the methods they will have to demonstrate in the field when their training is complete. They make their notes in the farmers' handbooks provided for them, the printing of which was financed by Oxfam. All the activities of the farming year are taught here. All kinds of new techniques, the making of compost and silage and the saving of every scrap of vegetable matter for its return to the soil. And each student has to operate a small vegetable garden of his own, and prizes are given for the best garden at the end of the year. As Oxfam's field director, responsible for the oversight of its programs in the High Commission territories, I live on this farm. I know these men and women and the work they do, and it is excellent. In the livestock division, to which the students are now proceeding, they can receive instruction in the care and the breeding of the Arab ponies, the brown Swiss cattle, the merino sheep, the Angora goats, and the Rhode Island poultry, with which it is hoped to replace the poor quality livestock of the country. In the poultry section, small chicks are bred for distribution through the extension workers to farmers in the field, so that the cultivation of these birds, the breeding of them and the care of them, can give a contribution in eggs and in flesh to the protein needs of the people in the rural areas. Unfortunately, these birds have to be grown from day-old chicks obtained in the Republic, but we are hoping to produce our own in due course. It may be wondered why a tractor isn't pulling that plough, but it's very important to have cattle integrated into the farming cycle, and the high cost of tractors makes them impracticable for the ordinary farmer. The manure of the cattle is needed on the farms, and although unfortunately today, owing to the lack of trees in Basutoland, most of the cattle dung is dried and burnt for fuel, Oxfam's program of forest plantations will, we hope, make manure available for use on the farms in the future. The stallions you see there are part of the farm stud which is being used to breed up the quality of the sturdy Basuto mountain pony, which is the only form of transport in the mountain areas. And here we have the first experiments in irrigated cultivation of fodder crops, a new idea to African people that one should grow crops to feed one's beasts, and yet without these crops, by the end of the severe winter, when the pasture is of low quality, the draft oxen are in such poor condition they find a great difficulty in performing their functions of ploughing and planting at the crucial time. And it is therefore also important to breed up the quality of the cattle, and we have found that the brown Swiss which you see here is ideal for the conditions of Basutoland, and by breeding them on the farm and providing the farmers with loans to acquire them, we hope steadily to raise the standards. This great barn is the storage space for the key to the whole arable problem. This is where the fertilizer for the farmers willing to use it and who have learned how to use it is kept. But fertilizer costs money. Good seed costs money. And a man who has an income in cash of sometimes less than £30 a year can hardly be expected to put almost the whole of that income into the purchase of fertilizer and seed, no matter what assurances are given to him by the agricultural officers. It's here that Oxfam, with the generous help of the people of Britain, have again made an impact. Through the Farmers' Sponsorship Scheme, farmers such as these are adopted and sponsored by individuals or groups in Britain who provide the £25 capital which enable them to start their own agrarian revolution. They don't get this as a grant, they get it as a loan, and it is used again for other farmers when they have made their start. But this farmer is a typical example of a man who has broken through, who with the use of seed and fertilizer has stepped his income up from £30 to maybe £100 a year, or more than that. As you see, he has been able to acquire a fine Scotch cart to carry his crops and his fertilizer and that of his neighbours to and from the fields. The land is good land, and with proper treatment it can be made fertile, can produce fine crops of wheat and peas and beans and maize. We want to see people like this farmer multiplied 1,000-fold in Basutoland. 5 years ago, this man wouldn't have known what a planter was. It's taken a lot of education and hard work to persuade him and some thousands of others to adopt these new methods, but there is no shortcut in farming. First the seed, then the fertilizer, a tremendous step forward. And so he goes on, with the assurance that now, in his mind, by this act he is going to treble his output. He's going to get off that field, instead of the meagre 1.5 to 2 bags of maize per acre that he formerly knew, 6 or 8 or 10 or even 12 bags when the crop is reaped. This is a slow process. It does not look a significant process, but this is the basis of all development in territories such as Basutoland, and the people do not go back from it once they have experienced success. But important also is the growth of vegetables to supplement the pure grain diet on which the people have hitherto relied. They used to eat a lot of wild spinaches from the mountain sides, but population pressure has caused these almost to disappear, and it is very important that vegetables should be brought in to replace them. Carrots provide vitamin A, which we now know is a most significant factor in the combating of eye diseases which are so common in Africa. So the introduction of carrots here is making a major medical contribution. This is a scene from one of the demonstration farms out in the rural areas, supported by Oxfam, where farmers and their wives can come to see the new methods in practical action, not done academically on an experimental farm controlled by a large staff, but carried out by one of their fellows on a pattern laid down by the Department of Agriculture. And eggs of this quality, believe me, are something new in Basutoland. Yet the experimental farm has its important place. Here the new seed trials are made, here the dosages of fertilizer are investigated, and the new methods which will be passed to the farmer evolved. But here as elsewhere, we have the pest of the quelea bird, the African finch, which comes in flocks and can strip fields bare of the grain. Therefore women are employed with rattles to scare the birds away. This is one aspect of the emphasis placed on methods of plant protection at the school. The women still winnow the grain by the ancient method of letting the wind carry away the chaff. Not a very modern way of doing things, perhaps, but we mustn't make too sudden a break between the old and the new. And in the conditions of underemployment which exist in all the rural areas of Africa, there is often a lot of sound sense in the old methods, and it would be unwise in this phase to make too rapid a break. There it is then, Oxfam in action as the agent of the World Freedom from Hunger campaign. In close liaison with the dedicated officers of the Department of Agriculture, its sponsorship scheme for African farmers, its provision of agricultural credit, its assistance with demonstration training farms, its help with agricultural education, its contribution to the health of the people through its flying doctor service, are bringing new hope to the energetic and enterprising people of Basutoland.